Evening. We have a crowd tonight, which is great. So I'm calling the school committee meeting from February 8th to order. Walking through the agenda briefly, then we will jump in. First, we will start with public comment. We have anybody here for that? We can hear from the public comment. We'll then move on to the focus on excellence, and in particular, we have some members of the Parker community here to talk about the Parker Kindness Kits. We're looking forward to hearing from that. We have a consent agenda that has a few items on it. We then move to new business, where we will hear from our designer and the project manager as well for our Killen building project to give us an update on what's going on there, what the next steps are, how we get engaged, potentially how the public gets engaged, and all that other kind of fun stuff. We'll then move on to our initial review of the FY25 school calendar for discussion, and then the FY24 financial report with any potential budget transfers, of which there are none for Q2. So that's our agenda for the evening. So with that said, we will move to public comment. If there is anybody with public comment, if you do want to provide public comment, please raise a hand. And if you do, then please state your name, street address, and questions or comments. Yes, please. Yes. Come on up to the podium over there.
Good evening. My name is Deja Grant, and I'm a part of Students of Colors and Allies for Equity, Justice, and Inclusion. We are here today to follow up on where the school committee is on reviewing the change in policy FF. We proposed the change on May 9th of last year, which was my freshman year. We asked for this policy to be revisited as we feel that it excludes people of color because there have not been administrators, community members, or other employees of color in Reading's past or present that have made significant contributions to Reading's education. We first brought the proposal to change the name of the elementary school Joshua Eaton due to the school being named after Joshua Eaton Jr., the son of a slave owner who reaped the benefits of his family owning slaves on that specific land. Sorry. We proposed that the policy be changed to be specific, but to the point, comprehensive, open, and inclusive, so that not only people who have contributed to education in Reading, but have contributed to Reading as a whole have an opportunity to be honored and nominated. Our hope is that you will consider our request as we look forward to working with you to move our school community into the future with these policy changes to be more welcoming and inclusive, providing all our students with a sense of belonging. Black History Month is a good time to reflect, on our collective accountability. We claim to be an inclusive town. This is our chance to act on these words.
Thank you, David. Is there anything else anybody else wants to say, or? No?
No, that was...
No, do we? No? Okay. So we don't technically have to respond to public comment, but I do want to respond and provide some feedback for you on that, where that stands, especially since it mostly is my fault that it hasn't moved forward. So as you noted, we met on May 9th with the policy subcommittee. Chuck and I were able to attend here in the library. We have copious notes of that meeting. There was a lot of feedback you provided and a lot of back and forth in that conversation, which was good, positive back and forth. We then went through the end of the school year, and there were one other meeting after that, basically. We didn't have time to work through that. Fast forward to now, and frankly, I've been extremely busy with negotiations in addition to this job as this. So that is where things stand. If I recall the conversation, in fact, I have the notes in front of me, and we wanted to simplify the policy and break it up. It essentially is a policy and procedure as it stands. It's got a lot of procedural materials in it as opposed to pure policy, which is usually much shorter and simpler. We compared, our version versus that of MASC and versus that of I think you brought Wilmington as an example, if I recall correctly, to compare. And so we looked at that and saw what was different between those two and how we might simplify things. There was a good discussion and debate about what we should or should not include, and I think that's going to be the next conversation at the policy subcommittee meeting. The problem we have is Chuck, myself, and Aaron need to find time to do that. And that's on us, me in particular as the chair of that committee as well. So we owe you that, and I know that. now that we've more or less concluded, not completely, but now that we've more or less concluded some of our negotiations, there should be some time for that. And of course, I just started a new job, so that adds to that. So we'll figure things out, but I just want to acknowledge the request and know that it's still pending, and I apologize. Okay, any other public comment? Sean, do you want to add anything?
I kind of want to ask you a question under the sort of 48-hour, kind of thing here, right? That, you didn't know this was coming per se. Just on the policy subcommittee piece, my recollection when we formed the policy subcommittee was that there was a discussion that if there was a sort of a substantive policy change, a philosophical change, it didn't necessarily need to live with the policy subcommittee first, that we might bring it to the full committee for a discussion about, sort of our perspectives and use that to inform the work the policy subcommittee would do to then draft revisions. Given what I just heard, I think this may fit into that category, so just throw it out there as an option that it could be something we try to bring to a full committee meeting, have a discussion about before referring to the policy subcommittee to write and draft any language.
I think it's a possibility. I think what we were trying to do was not substantively change, but in terms of the actual, there is some substantive change to their perspective, and so that could certainly be brought forward. But in terms of it was more of a structural change. In terms of this simplifying the policy, but then taking the procedure as a separate thing altogether. I'll think about that for one of the next meetings, though, Sean, to see if that makes more sense from a timeline perspective and availability. It might just simplify the process in that regard, too. I don't know if you had any other recollections from your perspective. Okay. So thank you for that feedback and question. Any other public comment? Okay. Seeing that, let's move on. And we'll move to the focus on excellence and the Parker Kindness Kits. And Dr. Milichewski, you want to do the introductions?
Great. All right, good evening, everyone. So for those who may be new to a school committee meeting here too, we have started each of our meetings with a focus on excellence. This year we've celebrated excellence in mentorship through our Rocket Ambassador program here at the high school. We celebrated academic excellence through our National Merit Scholars, our Mass Certificate of Academic Excellence recipients, those who received the certificate of the Seal of Biliteracy. We've celebrated excellence in athletics by our state championship lacrosse, field hockey, and our unified basketball team. We've celebrated excellence in the arts by our state championship marching band and color guard. And I would also say the bucket of community, where we celebrated and recognized our Birch Meadow students who have moved forward our composting initiative. I'd like to share something missing from that list thus far has been a focus on excellence in character and also in kindness, which I think are two of the things that are absolutely most important in our schools and in our community. I'm really excited tonight to introduce the group from Parker Middle School, who I think through what they're going to describe tonight in their kindness kits really embodies character, really embodies excellence in the community, and I'm really thrilled for everyone outside of Parker to be able to hear about the work that they've done. So we're going to invite up a couple of students, also Principal Rubino, and also science teacher Ms. Peterson, to be able to share a little bit about their work. So come on up, and those microphones are probably the best. If you don't mind coming and sitting down up here so that everyone at home can see you as well.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm very excited. Ms. Kim Peterson is a science teacher, an 8th grade science teacher at Parker, and she is also the leader of Parker Leaders, which is our service organization at Parker. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Peterson and our students.
Thank you. And thank you again for having us. This is a great initiative to recognize the work that our schools do.
Ms. Peterson, pull that other mic towards you, too. They're for different purposes,
okay.
Unfortunately, so you need both.
Thank you. So I'm first going to just start with introducing the Pine Street Inn, which is the organization that we work with. It was founded in 1969. Pine Street provides a comprehensive range of services to over 2,000 individuals a day. They are the largest homeless service provider in New England and could not do their work without the support of their community of friends and supporters like us. Pine Street's program include permanent housing, emergency shelter, street outreach, and workforce development. Their goal is to end homelessness by making the safety and stability of permanent housing a reality for all.
Importance of our Kindness Kits outreach bags. Pine Street Inn's street outreach teams offer clothing, food, blankets, healthcare referrals, and human contact to homeless individuals who, often struggling with mental illness and addiction, choose not to come into the shelter. The team works to build trust with these individuals. Through these relationships, many chronically homeless people have moved from the streets to permanent housing and towards independence. Pine Street's outreach van program has run every night since 1986.
Pine Street is the only organization offering constant nightly street and outreach in Boston. Their vans travel the city streets from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., providing assistance and compassion to upwards of 100 people staying on the street of Boston each night. They go out regardless of weather. In fact, the need is greatest during blizzards, hurricanes, and heat waves.
So this is a quote from one of our outreach teams from the Pine Street Inn. Pine Street has an operating budget of close to $85 million. Collectively, these types of donation drives happen all throughout the year to support our guests and tenants on the street, in the shelter, job training, and in housing. Because of the generosity of communities like Parker Middle, we are able to supply individuals with basic necessities while at the same helping to cover the costs that PSI would otherwise incur, thus allowing more resources to be allocated to the different strategies and programs aimed at helping people get out of the shelter and into housing. And just on a side note, Parker's donations are the largest they get every year, and it's been that way for about 10 years, so it's very important that we do the work. So these are just some pictures of the students preparing the bag. So basically, we put boxes in each homeroom, and each grade has a certain amount of collections that they need to do, certain items, and then we pretty much dump everything in my room, and it's exciting, but a lot. And then the students come in and they organize it. It takes a few hours, and then we bring everything down to the cafeteria where things are organized individually in the boxes, and the entire 8th grade participates in making what we call the kindness kits. And then the Pine Street Inn, they come and they pick up, and this is just a picture in the middle of what we were able to do this year. So it's a lot, and it's a great cause, and we're happy to continue to do the work. Thank you again for having us.
Great. I'm going to ask that the students introduce themselves so we get to know you as well. Tell us a little about yourselves and what, obviously 8th grade now at this point, but tell us anything else you want to share.
I'm Declan Grant. I've been in this Parker Service group helping out with these donations for all 3 years that I've been at Parker, and it's really just incredible to see that our group, all of these students, with of course some educator help, put together this drive that really helps out so many people with basic necessities that a lot of us don't even think about. And the fact that we put together we are one of their biggest contributors, I feel like that's just really, it's really interesting and great to be a part of.
My name's Emily Samways. I'm also an 8th grader, and I've been in Parker Service for just this year. I felt that since it's my last year at Parker, I could help out more than I did in the past 3 years of school. And for me as a student, I feel that these kindness kits, it makes me really grateful for what I have and really happy that I can help others who are less fortunate and to help the probability that they can get the supplies they need.
Awesome. Anything from the rest of the committee? Chuck?
Well, thank you. This is great. My question is, how is the outreach? Is this just to the Parker community or to the community as a whole?
This just has been at our school. I would love for it to branch out. I think that would be wonderful. But as of right now, no, it's just been initiated by the Parker Service and part of the service for the 8th grade to do before we go to our Boston trip. So it's kind of been a tradition to start us off that way.
I do think that somebody posted it on one of the Facebook groups, though, because my wife knew enough, and we don't have anybody at Parker anymore, to pull together all of those things you get from the dentist when you go to the dentist and say, here, you take them.
We get a lot of toothbrushes.
You remembered me dropping by to come give off toothbrushes and toothpaste and stuff like that.
Yes.
So,
And thank you for bringing that up. We do have a lot of local businesses in Reading that do support these kits as well.
great. Well, we do have a tradition with all of our Focus on Excellence that we get a picture with people before they leave. So we'll ask that you come down front here, and we'll join you around, and we'll go from there. Too much stuff.
I think we're closer to the shelves than we usually are.
I don't have a camera this time, so. I got my phone.
Can you slide forward so we can slide behind you?
Two rows. Important people in the front.
I don't know what happened. Thank you.
Thank you all. Great job.
You gonna do a plug?
Yeah, we're going to do a quick.
I was gonna do it, Declan, but Dr. Emerson meaner than me.
So before Declan and Emily leave, they're just going to put a quick plug in for an upcoming event, special event at Parker, and we feel like it's better to hear it from them than anyone else. So
Can you do it in the voice?
put them on the spot.
Do it in your.
So our school musical is coming up in about a month. March 7th, 8th, and 9th are our performances, and we're putting it together really well. It's going great. So I am in the cast. I'm playing Shrek, and Emily.
I'm the assistant stage manager.
Yeah, and we would just love to have to share what we've been working on for the past few months with all of you guys in our Reading community.
Sells out quickly.
Sarah's over here asking if you'll give us a sample of the
I know, did you want to
Shrek.
try anything back now?
Well, I suppose I could.
There we go.
Good sport, good one, Doc.
On the spot. Great. Thank you, Declan. Thanks, Emily. She won't ask publicly, they'll do it. All right. So now let's move on through our agenda. And we have the consent agenda. I have one correction to the minutes, and I want to confirm with Chuck to make sure I'm not overly correcting. At one point in the minutes, it's talking about the RF, what I think is an RFI, not an RIF. Of RFI, so we'll have that corrected in the minutes retrospectively. And then I also just wanted to raise what I was turning notes to Dr. Milczewski on. We, from my perspective, still approve it, but Habitat for Humanity is an interesting field trip for us to think about from a policy perspective, because it's not during the school year, and it hasn't been during the school year ever. It has actually caused problems in the past with graduating seniors going, so we just want to be conscious of that, and ideally it's upcoming 10th, upcoming 11th, upcoming 12th graders, as opposed to graduates going on this for a school-sponsored event. So we're going to follow up on that, but just a point for us. There's nothing in any of our policies that says we are in control of non-school year, but it also doesn't specifically say only school year. So it's an interesting policy loophole to a degree for us to think about. So anyway, with that said, I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Chuck. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And it passes 5-0. We move on. We don't have a student with us tonight, other than the ones that we already heard from. Dr. Pinto.
Good evening. I have a few quick things to report. On January 29th, I was part of the Sustainability Committee meetings for the Killam School Building Project. I'm sure you're going to hear a little bit more about that tonight. But we covered MSBA's green school policy, stretch energy, and sustainability goals. On February 1st, the Director of Food Services, Catherine Franzetti, and myself met with the acting town manager, along with other town officials, to discuss our composting initiative and the financial support and partnership needed to move that forward. February 2nd, I met with John Fudo over at the Y, the executive director of the Y, for a tour and a little more of an insight into the services and programs that they provide, the role that they play in our community. At the end of the month, I'll be presenting to FinCom on the FY25 budget, and also at the end of the month, as part of our monitoring of the budget, we'll be going over year-to-date expenses, along with position control and budgetary needs with all of our principals and cost center managers. So that will be at the end of the month as well. That's my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Pinto? No? Dr. Milichewski?
So I don't know if it's possible to have reports. I know it's not on the agenda, but Sarah Hardy is present and would like to share an update. I can defer to her if that's okay, or?
This one is not one that I think is going to cause an open meeting law violation.
Perfect.
So, Dr.
right.
Hardy, I'm going to switch the focus to you. Hold on a second. And then you can dive in. So, up to you, Dr. Hardy.
All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. I just have two quick updates for you tonight. So over the last few weeks, Dr. Milichewski and I and some other central office staff have been invited into many of the elementary classrooms across our district. It's been an exciting time in our 5 elementary schools as a number of classrooms finish up Unit 2 of the ARC Core Literacy Program. And at the end of those units, our students have published some really great and amazing research books. And we've been invited in to see these and get a chance to read with students, and families have been invited in too. So just a huge shout out to our teachers and our students. Getting to see the student work in action is really kind of the best part of our work. This is just a little bit of a preview because we will be, Erin Birchall and I will be coming to see you at the end of the month. I believe it is the 29th, and we will have a presentation for you on ARC Core K-2 implementation. So, and we hope to bring some work samples with us that night to show you. The second area I wanted to update you on, just some quick updates regarding our Math Pathways work. We did hold a virtual parent information night for families at the high school. We were able to take families through what the math pathway looks like at the high school, what the options are for students, and how those might support different college and career pathways. We did record that, and we have in the next newsletter from the district and coming out from the high school, parents will be able to access a recording. They'll also have access to the presentation. That night, we also went over something that we're launching this summer that we're very excited about, our summer geometry course. And so we did provide in the presentation all the details about that course. And so we're going to include in the newsletter as well a flyer that has much more detail about the summer geometry course. And so that will be going out so that everyone has access to it. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
No report.
No report. Go through our liaison reports then. Sean?
Just very quickly, I'm sure everyone's aware, the Select Board's been in the process of appointing a new town manager. That was scheduled to happen this Tuesday, but I won't get into everything that happened on Tuesday, but they're at a bit of an impasse, and I think are meeting again on Amanda's birthday, if I'm not mistaken, this coming Tuesday, to attempt to reach a consensus and reach a majority there. Fingers crossed, we'll have a new town manager appointed on Tuesday, and be able to move forward that way.
It does impact us because our town manager has to vote on our related agreements, so thank you for the update. Okay, Carla?
I'm not going to have a report tonight.
Because you see the report sitting over there. All right. Sarah?
No report.
Chuck?
So the Charter Review Committee met a week ago Monday. Our chair is here, and we met with town council to kind of go over all the changes that have been discussed thus far, and the chair has sent, and you probably have received it, has sent out that complete charter, all the boards and committees, and looking for feedback to come back to the committee. And I think at that point, we'll be pretty much almost done. And it was a long meeting. It went till 11 o'clock, I think. That same week, the SWEC met, and that was just another presentation from the RFI respondent, Edge Sports. And, obviously, more discussion on pickleball and stuff. And then Sean mentioned the select board meeting. I was there, not for that town manager piece, but for when the capital discussion happened, and just put our committee's 2 cents in on the study for the
Field house.
They didn't vote on it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Chuck? No? Actually, I'll ask you a question. Are we supposed to respond individually, or is the bylaw committee expecting us to respond as a committee?
I think as a committee, the chair, you would.
Did everybody else get that email?
Sent to everyone, I believe.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't get it.
I did.
I'll put it tentatively on for the 29th anyway, and if anybody wants to briefly discuss any feedback, we can discuss as a committee, and then we can circulate the answer. Mr. Haley, would you like to address that as well? Please come around here so people can see you.
Chris Haley, Tennyson Road. Yes, it was sent to all boards and committees. Anybody can respond, Sean, Carla, whatever you want. But only what it pertains to your section, if you have any feedback that you want to give. So yours might be different than Sean's, et cetera. And then there will be public input going in the future as well, where anyone can do anything on any different topic. So that's essentially it. Whoever wants to do whatever.
Hopefully Sean and I have the same section since we're on the same committee, but we'll see if we get a different document, and then we can work on it.
Might have things to say about audit committee, who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so thank you. I have no reports, so we will move into the next section of the agenda as well. I don't know who's introducing. Dr. Milichewski, Carla, who's introducing?
I don't mind. Welcome to LBA and to Colliers. So we thought it was important just at this point in the process for the community to be able to hear a little bit from LBA and from Colliers about what's been happening in the project over the past couple of months and also what's ahead. We also know there's been various ways for community members to interact, stay engaged, but we wanted people to be able to have the chance to hear from them directly face-to-face tonight too. So thank you to Mike, thank you to Jenny, thank you for Lee for being here. And take it away. We have your presentation to show, and it would be great if you can introduce yourselves too, because I don't know if everyone in the community at large has met you yet.
Who has the presentation? I don't have it.
Chris has the presentation, so
Yes,
come on
please,
down.
please come sit so we can see you on the camera as well.
Here, it's quite a drive. Well, I want to sit next to you.
Okay. Everyone wants to say something.
Yes, I do.
Chris, where should I see it? There it is.
There it is.
I'm guessing we're allowed to talk anyway.
Yeah, do you want to start with your introductions while we pull it up?
Yeah.
Get going? It works.
Sure. Absolutely, here. So we're supposed to speak into both of these?
Yes.
They have different purposes. Why don't you go first?
All right, so I'll start off. My name's Mike Carroll. I work for Colliers International, and we're the owner's project manager on the project. We came on to the project last August, around August or so, and one of the first things we had to do was, one, get to know the community, but two, work with you to bring on a design team, which is where the LBA team comes in. So we did a process through this fall, and then in early November, we did some designer selection boards
boards with the MSBA, and I think everybody made a very smart choice, and we were able to get the LBA team on our team, and I think over the last couple of months here, they've really been leading the charge here as far as getting an understanding of what we need to make a successful project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lee and Jenny to kind of take away here.
Thanks. Let's see the next slide. Thank you. Introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Jenny Kariamaki. I'm project manager for LBA.
My name is Lee Sherwood, and I'm the principal in charge, which is a fancy term. I don't really like the in charge part. It really is a collaboration, and I am excited to meet most of you. I mean, I've already met some of you, and you have a great superintendent, by the way. We actually, once we got this job, we wanted to get going right away, because having done MSBA projects in the past, and I'm not sure if your last project was actually part of the old MSBA, SBA, or the new MSBA. Old. Yeah, and I just wanted to say a couple things that I always feel is good information. It's really great to have an OPM, and I actually have worked with Mike in the past, and he gives me a hard time, and that's a good thing for you. And I think that it used to be that you would run into a lot of trouble as a community sometimes with management, but I have found that it's been good for us to have that partnership. So what you can expect from us as architects is to be working with your OPM all through this. We really are partners. And also, having done MSBA work, there's a lot of people involved. When you look at this chart right here, where Jenny had put down a whole bunch of the consultants, there's like 29 consultants under us in all of this. And they all have their place in this process. And the process is fairly rigorous, and it's and you want to keep on track. So we really hit the ground running and put together all the meetings. We inundated Carla with meetings, and we tried to present it in a way that she would start to, kind of absorb it and understand what the process is. But really, our job is to make it easy for you guys. Our job is to come in and tell you what we're doing and not have to have you ask. That's pretty much how we look at it. We have other people on our team. Many of the people on our team are and have been working on the Swampscott Elementary School that some of you might have heard about, which is an MSBA project, which is really in construction and just being built. And we take a lot of the knowledge and experience that we gained in that community, working with the community, engaging the community, working on traffic in neighborhoods. They had a failed vote once, and we really learned how to overcome that, probably through hard work and through communication. And we take all of these, and net zero schools and things like that. That will be a net zero ready energy school. And we take all this experience that we've gained and we bring it to you. And I want you to know that so that you feel a little more comfortable, like, who are these guys that they voted for? Carla, you voted for us, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. So we can blame Carla, is what you're saying?
Tom, did you vote for us?
I did. I'm happy with my choice thus far.
Well, that almost never happens. Well, I'm saying it that way just to kind of say, I think that from the very beginning, we've been on the same page. I live a couple towns down, and I feel like when I come to Reading, I kind of feel like I'm home. So I feel very comfortable here. And you have anything else to say before we go on?
No, let's please go on.
That's the project manager in her, right?
No, Jenny, yeah. That's exactly, it's going to be like the team. Okay, next.
All right, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the schedule. I'm going to try and keep it at the high level here. But again, as we present here, please interrupt us if you have any questions, any comments, or anything like that. But we did talk a little bit about bringing the team together. We've done that, and now we're working through what we call the feasibility study. And what I make an analogy on that is if you were doing an addition in your home, this is when you're sitting down at the diner, sketching on the back of a napkin, trying to figure out what are all the different options? How do we want to think about this? Do we want the addition on the left side of the house or the right side of the house? Are we going to go up? That's all the stuff that we're trying to figure out right now. We're coming up with options, and we're going to be working through that feasibility basically through the summertime, and basically mid-August, we're going to do the preferred schematic report, PSR. That's a submission to the MSBA. Through this entire process, as we get to the end of each phase, there's a submission to the MSBA so that they can review what we've done and they can basically approve us to move to that next step. The MSBA does this across all the projects that they work on, and so anywhere from 8 to 10 on a low year up to 12 or 15 on a higher year. So they're doing this all the time. They're seeing different OPMs, different designers, different districts, and they're providing their feedback to you. So it's a very important part of the step is that their understanding of our project, but the other part of it is that they do let it be your project. They don't try and make the requirements so strict and so stringent that you create like a cookie cutter project. It's really going to be defined for your community, and that's why Lee and Jenny are having 40 meetings, 50 meetings a month, trying to get information from you as much as they're feeding it back to you. They're getting it from you, so that we understand that, and we can take that community input in that input from the teachers and from the staff and everything to move us forward. So once we get through this feasibility, we're going to be moving into schematic design, and at the end of the schematic design next spring, about a year from now in April, we're going to have that final design that we've narrowed it down to, and we're going to know what project we want to build. Now, we have the shell of the project at that point. We don't have all the details. So from that point there, the first thing we need to do is secure the funding to get us through the rest of the project. So that funding securing will happen between April and June. We're looking to try and do it right before the summertime, and that'll allow the design team to work through design development and the construction documents. That will take about a year and a half, 14 months, and what we'll be looking to do is start construction in August of 2026. 2026, for about 2 years, we'll be building, and then that would be allowing us to open the new building in 2028. At that point, the old building would come down, and it's about another year to get the final site and everything together. That timeline is a general timeline, assuming that we go new building and assuming that we go Chapter 149, which is design bid build or lump sum low bid building procurement. There is a different type of procurement, and there is consideration for renovation options and renovation addition options that we are still considering, but we've been using this as a general timeline with the building committee and with the community at large right now. So,
you want us to ask questions as we go, or do you want to wait for
absolutely.
the end? You skipped right past, or maybe I missed it. What is the PDP May 20th submission? What does that cover?
That's the preferred design. So we have an interim step in there where we again, it's a submission to the MSBA, and they have to go through and they have to review it, and they have to understand that we've checked all the boxes, that we're doing what we need to do, that we've worked with you, we've done traffic studies, we've done the different educational studies. We're working towards that next phase.
So this is the check boxes, basically, that leads to the preferred schematic that you've come up with.
Correct.
Okay, which is the August 21st one. Okay. Anybody else? No?
All right, so I think Jenny might be talking a little bit more detail specifically about maybe this next phase.
Yeah, I think Lee is, but
Oh, Lee,
if you go to
okay.
the next slide.
And when, forget it. So here's the thing. There's a lot to do, and you've all seen complex projects before. The partnership with the MSBA makes it a very rigorous process with a lot of reviews. There's a lot of people there, and they really take their job seriously, I have found. It's not an agency that just says, do whatever you want. They care about the money. They care about the program and the educational program. Massachusetts is one of the only states that really supports educational visioning, sustainable design. They give huge rebate, or refunds for in the costs for sustainable, and because of that, there's a lot to do. When you look at this, I don't know how well you can see this crazy drawing. It's crazy for a reason, and it's because it's trying to actually take a schedule and make it into a graphic. And it's really helpful to me, although I've found that some people are more project managery, they like the other kinds of schedules, which we also have. But if you start at the very left and go to the very top, what you see is January, sorry about that. And we start off with those 2 green dots, which are community meetings. So right from the very beginning, even though we've met with the SPC, we call it the SPC, we are already speaking with the community. So we've already had those. And if you look at those lines across horizontally, there's the project charter, which is kind of the guidelines for the whole project. That's where we determine what makes Reading different. Its community, its education, what makes you unique, and especially this school and this elementary and this education. The next line down is actually sustainability. We give it its own timeline. And, you know, your nameplate is smaller than everyone else's, Derek. It doesn't seem fair. I think you should put in for, you should requisition a new one.
Trying to keep a low profile.
Or you're modest. But what I would say is that is its own thing, because as you know from when we were trying to establish our sustainability goals, energy is very important here in Reading, is very important in the world, but it's really important to you guys. And you have a lot of people in town who are really focused on that, and it's part of your mission here. You even have your own electric company, which is really awesome. So we have kind of a timeline that moves across with that. We have an educational planning timeline. All those purple dots in the beginning are because in order for us to do that first PDP submission, we really need to understand your educational vision, which is why you guys came here to be elected, and the program, the spatial program that supports that, because it is tailored to how you teach and how you want your curriculum to be and connected to the rest of the district. That's why there's so many of them. We have an educational consultant, a planner, Mike Parolo, who is conducting educational visioning with leaders, educators, and Jenny's going to show you some pictures of some of the very first things we've done. This stuff is essential for us to understand exactly who you are and how you want to teach. And we really are, these days, making schools that fit you and drive you forward, rather than things that in 10 years you say, this doesn't work for us anymore. That would be a disaster. That's why there's so many of them right up front, and it leads to the program, which Jenny will talk about. Then we have another line that says traffic, site, and community. We've already met with the community, the Reading community and the faculty community once. I think it went well, didn't it? Mm-hmm. They were very engaged, smart group. But we want to start talking to people about the site and traffic, the neighborhood, and all of that. So what did we do? We already hired our traffic, God bless you. We already hired our traffic consultant, who we used at Swampscott, who had much bigger traffic issues than anyone I've ever seen. And they're conducting those surveys and those studies right now, so that when we do go to the neighbors and talk to them about safe routes and all that kind of stuff, we have something to talk to them about and then get their feedback. And then we bring it back to the SBC. Every time you see one of those orange dots, no one's colorblind, right? You can see the orange. You are colorblind? I apologize.
I chose green and orange. That was a bad choice.
So they look the same? So everything just happens. I'd actually, because of that, I'd be happy to sit down and show it to you afterwards, because that's the kind of person I am.
Thank you.
But for the others who can see that, those orange dots coming down, you see them in that kind of diagonal, those are SBC meetings, and after we learn something, we bring it back to them. When we go back out, we talk to the community, and we go back in and out. And then you see the design and cost estimating. That's when we start to really map things out on the site, start putting together certain kinds of options. Some of your options will be renovation and addition, because we're supposed to do that and we should do that, and some of them are new on that site as well. And then there's the MSBA process at the end there, which are the milestones that we're trying to hit. To us, this makes complete sense, and it's pretty crazy, but it will allow us to keep moving and to hit the right spots in the right order in order to hit these milestones. And we're happy to come back and talk to you every time you want an update. How's that?
Great, next slide. I think you're still on, Lee.
Oh, I'm still on a little bit?
Yeah.
So I will say that from our initial community sessions, we were trying to kind of create project goals that are unique to you. And a couple of the things, so we actually ended up with 5. We were working on a project charter, just like you talked about a charter, but this is about the school, and that's community and all of that. And I think we have 5 strong themes for your community. One is community-centered, which I will say, we'll probably find out that we know that the elementary school is community-centered, but we also know that it is an elementary school first. You know what I mean? So people tell us these things, and I'm just telling you what they told me. Then there's the educational vision, which we're still developing, but I have to tell you that that's not, it's a great school, and the faculty is really engaged. And I just want to say they all like each other, and they're really friendly, and it's all about the kids. And we don't want it, whatever we do, we don't want to, even if it's taller or this way or that way, we don't want to lose that sense. Responsible sustainability is really important to a whole bunch of people on the SBC and in the community. And this building will meet those marks, one, because it's the right thing to do, 2, because you can afford it because of all the incentives you're about to get. While some people don't want to necessarily call it a model of development, it certainly is an example of how you could approach projects in the future in your town when given the option. A sense of belonging is really all about the welcoming nature of your school and how the people who work there want to reinforce programs from, like the kids from the Boston residents who come in, and people and whoever come into the school, multi-language learners. They want to really reinforce that belonging throughout the school when we design and think about it. And lastly, it needs to be a safe and healthy school. A lot of the things we do for indoor air and for materials and things like that are about health, and that's something we do anyway now, especially after the pandemic. But when it comes to safety, these are elementary school kids. There was a former principal who lives across the street, was at one of the community meetings, and he sits there and he worries. And he watches and he worries, watching the buses come and the people get dropped off and where they get dropped off, and they walk across the street, and he worries. And the reason and if he's on here, that's great. He worries because it's not set up perfectly yet. There's a lot of obstacles to safety. There's a lot of conflicts, and when we do a new site and a new building, safety is going to be extraordinarily important for the children and everybody who uses the school. Does that make sense? Does that sound like you? Now it's Jenny's turn.
Thank you, Lee. You can go to the next slide. Pardon me. So I'm just going to give an update on some of the tasks that we've completed in the last month in our work so far. So as Lee referred to, one of our most important tasks in the beginning of the project is to really get to know you. So we've done that through a number of different ways, and one of the first things that we did, this was like January 10th or something, really early on, is we spent a morning at the Killam School with our educational planner, Lee and I. You can see Tom was one of our tour guides, Lindsay Fulton was one of our tour guides, and they showed us around the school, and we just talked to a bunch of people. We talked to people in the hallways, and we talked to kids, and we talked to teachers, to try to get a sense of what the Killam School is all about. And the things that really stuck out to us as unique to Killam were everyone talked about how it's such a warm and welcoming place. There's a kind of a family feeling, a community feeling. And that has to do with the people that work there, the culture of the place, and it also has to do a little bit with the architecture that we learned about. And another thing we learned is that people really like one another, which you would think would be just like a baseline thing, but it is not always the case. And all the staff that we talked to, people were just really, again, warm and welcoming and nice. And the terrific values that Killam has, those are really carried out in the school community. Next slide. We also started our community engagement process. We met with the Killam staff and we met with the community. And these are really goal-setting meetings and visioning meetings to try to understand what people's priorities are. Next slide. So our process is a little bit like this. We kind of brainstorm about what is important to people, what the Killam is about, what are important characteristics that are important to retain, and what are things that are missing that we need to have and improve. And we brainstorm, we vote with these little colored stickers, we tabulate the results, and that is actually how we arrive at the goals that Lee was just talking about, these 5 goals that we've established for the project. Next slide. And then we went on a series of school tours. We spent a whole day driving around the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it felt like. But we got to, and we went with a group of educational leaders, the educational leadership team that Tom and Lindsay have put together, and Carla came as well. Did you?
Not that day.
I'm sorry. Carla wasn't able to join us that day, but we're going to have more school tours and she's going to be able to join us. I'm sorry. And what some of the great things about these tours are that people are able to identify, first of all, you kind of get to see like what does a new school look like today, because it's very different from where the staff had been teaching in this 1969 building. And we also got to see kind of, once the kind of shine wore off at the first school, it was just like, wow, it's so amazing, it's so new, it's so pretty. But by the time we got to the third school, people were really thinking like, oh, this characteristic is not so good, is not so for us, and these aspects are really what we want to have in our new school. Next.
I wonder if, Tom, did you have any thoughts about the school tours, things you saw?
Yeah, I think that was I would say, first of all, it was really exciting because I felt like it was, Carla and I kept saying it was a lot coming fast, and then all of a sudden to be actually see, oh, this is what we're working towards, I think was encouraging for everyone. But I actually think it started for the first time for me, as someone who usually doesn't thinking about buildings and design, around how the layout of a building, the architecture of a building actually does influence what teaching and learning is going to look like in the building. And I saw that light bulb go off in certain settings saying, the way that this is structured, the way that this is laid out is not conducive for teaching and learning, and here's why. And I thought it was really valuable to have, we had a couple of teachers, paraprofessional, other staff members with us, just picking everything apart in every building. So I think we left with a good idea of, in general, what are we looking for in a new school, but also what's really important to some of the Killam staff too.
That's a question. What you're describing in terms of, getting to know the school community and our priorities and getting all this feedback, it's hard to argue with that. How do you balance what, feels good and represents a snapshot in time of today and what our teachers are feeling and how they're trying to, how they want to teach and that sort of thing, with like, I'm sure in 1960 whatever, it seemed like a good idea to put the library in the middle of the building and have it be sunk and have multiple steps surrounding it and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure that seemed like a good idea at some point. How do you balance the I don't know, practicality is the wrong word, but the practicality against, against sort of the, what's appealing or what feels like a fit in a, in that way.
Doing due diligence is a good thing. And I think that what the MSBA process and this process helps us do is see all the things that it could be. But that doesn't mean that it's not in the end going to be a school. And there's a word that is pretty popular. Those words change in education. Right now, future ready is a big word or a big term. Future ready kind of is the idea that things change and they evolve, and you're building it now, but you're also building it so that in 15 years it can be used differently and change. So the real balance comes in this flexibility or adaptation or the accepting that evolution happens, and I don't mean that in a certain term, and that things need to be able to change. And I think that that's how we balance it. We are very aware that what one or two teachers might want may not be the answer, but that's why we go through, ask so many people. I mean, Tom, we're challenging you to think 30 years from now, and it's impossible, but it also says that if you can't know what's going to happen in 30 years, you need to keep it flexible. For example, I'm just going to say something kind of really simple. I don't like to use concrete block walls, not because they're cold and they're hard and echoey and all that, but in 15 years, if you want to move a wall, it's really hard to tear that down. And you know what I mean? So I'd rather make them out of something that you can reconfigure later on. And we want every space to be able to be used in different ways because it will change. Does that help?
That's a great answer.
There's a lot of talk, too, about, swing spaces, and, the premise is still the same. We're teaching, right? And we're teaching children. So to have spaces of that have the ability to morph into different sizes and to have hallways to morph into being able to have little tiny spaces carved out. Somebody used the picket fence, right? So and using furniture and using, like you said, materials that's not permanent but still creates different areas. So that's a lot of like swing space has been one of the terms that I've used more times while going through this process. So,
and I would just say one last thing is there will be a time when we kind of show you the product of the educational visioning and then how it became something, and then you start to see it in the plans. We don't want to do corridors anymore. No more hallways. It's like every space is used in some way, and it's just a very different setup than it used to be. Tom understands it, having seen those other schools, how they can really work differently, and the old cells and bells or whatever they call it. Bunch of classroom is still important, but hallways are a waste of everyone's time. And we're going to design a school that is reasonably different enough and that works for you.
Thank you. So I think this is the last of these. Oh, no, there's one more after this. Another thing we've been doing is a really thorough assessment of the existing conditions. So this involves a whole bunch of our sub-consultants, our structural engineer, our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, civil engineering, code and accessibility consultants, and we've visited the school and the site multiple times. We're completing a survey, a traffic study, environmental assessments, hazardous materials. So, and this is all required by the MSBA, which is great because it gives us a really good baseline understanding of what's there above ground, underground, what the condition of the existing building is, so that we can then do the analysis and make the argument for what the cost is to renovate and put an addition on this building that would bring it up to the standard of 2024 versus, doing a new construction option.
Before you move on from this one, does this include the entire area that is not just the school, but the back area as well, and you're looking at the soil samples and
Yes.
things like that, making sure that we don't have a bunch of slate underneath that we can't get
Yes,
through? and
we're doing a geotechnical
which Reading is known
investigation.
for?
Yes.
Yeah, I like to say, a penny at the beginning here, a penny of cure worth a pound of prevention. So try to get out there and understand as best you can, because while we have a project budget and we have a contingency built into that, the unknowns is the biggest threat to that contingency. So the fewer unknowns you have, the better off we will be.
And you or whoever was in charge of establishing and putting through that initial budget for fees, set aside a whole area of money for survey, geotech work, and, all those kinds, and even traffic, all those kinds of studies up front. And that was very wise of you.
Thanks, Mike.
If that's where it came from.
Probably, right?
Well, we work with you, but
He's being humble, isn't he?
Wise to listen to good advice, then. Next slide, please. And then this is the last slide. So we've also formed 3 working groups. One is the educational working group, which is not on here. I'm sure you've heard some of what we've been, I've already shared some of what we've been working on. We're working on the educational visioning with that group right now. And we also have a sustainability working group that's made up of some members of the school building committee. We have folks from the town climate advisory group. And I think we have just some other interested citizens. And we are consulting with that group at the moment to develop our sustainability goals for the project. But we'll meet about monthly with that group throughout the project as we develop our mechanical systems, our sustainability approach, and they're going to kind of advise us and give us feedback on if we're barking up the wrong tree, or if we want to align the sustainability goals and practices of the project with the town of Reading's vision and expectations. And then we have a communications group that has identified the community meeting times and dates, and we're also, Olivia in Tom's office has done a great job putting together a website that will be ready to go live in a couple of weeks, I think. Next slide.
Before we do, can I jump in here on the sustainability stuff? I noticed in the community meeting, that was a pretty big topic overall. I also knew a lot of the people in the room, and I knew why it was a big topic, because of the people in the room. One of the things that I think in your previous slide, you put responsible sustainability. So I think the undercurrent of that is that we can manage it, maintain it, that it fits into our cost, even though we're getting all these related refunds or whatever, or bonuses, I would say, from MBTA. We're considering the whole cost, right? As part of that process, long-term maintenance costs, that Joe's staff knows how to manage those materials that are substantively different than the other 7 schools, and all that kind of fun stuff too.
Absolutely correct.
Great, thank you.
So I say on the website piece too, so I know one of the big things Mike said, if you're able to do the website in-house, that's obviously a huge advantage. We looked at some of the prices of outsourcing that, and we thought they were really, really high. So Olivia's taken the lead, but I'd like to see Chris here too. Chris has been doing a lot of support behind the scenes to help support Olivia, lift Olivia up, and get that thing up and running. So Chris, I know you have a ton on your plate, and just volunteering that time to support us is a huge lift, because we don't have necessarily that skill or technical expertise. So just thank you for doing that too. And a huge thank you to Olivia. I know Olivia is balancing a lot too, and to do this, and Carla's been feeding a lot of content. We hope to be able to share that website out in a couple of weeks too, and hopefully that's a good way for us to be able to get information out constantly to the community. We know that we have to keep the community informed throughout this project, and I think the website is intended to be one of those kind of central pieces of that communication strategy.
Are we hosting that ourselves?
We are, so yep.
Some hosting company.
Yeah, so it's through WordPress. So the Reading Public Schools is technically the host. Right now, the name, we're trying to take a simple name, which we have, but if we release it now, it's probably going to people look. So we kind of have the site up and running. We're still trying to play with it, but something very simple that captures the essence of the project. That's our own.
And we'll roll it out by our next meeting. We're going to roll it out to everybody.
Who's next meeting? Right, our next meeting or your next meeting?
Our next meeting,
Okay,
the 29th,
29th, okay, great.
along with the community meeting that will be right before that in the same room.
And that's also just a chance to, if anyone else in the community has a background or interest in like communications and social media, anything, feel like that's a part where we're going to be able to continue to need support too, feel free to reach out to our office. I think we're always happy to have anyone who wants to be a part of it and support us in that part of the project.
Okay, so almost wrapping up here, just our kind of next steps for the next month or two. Our next SBC meetings, which kind of track what we're working on as we're giving updates to the SBC, the School Building Committee. We'll be giving an update on the educational, I don't have our next one in here. February 12th, on Monday, we're meeting about the sustainability goals. March 11th, we'll give an update on the educational visioning process. March 25th, we will give an update on traffic, site analysis, and existing conditions findings. Our next community meetings are February 29th. That'll be about sustainability goals specifically. And March 18th will be about site and traffic. It'll be the first of 2 site and traffic meetings. So the first one is more of a listening session, and the second one will be actually looking at options and proposals. Yes.
And just so you know, when it comes to the community engagement, this is the upfront stuff, and people really do appreciate it, and it helps us a lot. But we do continue to go and engage with information and ask questions throughout the process, all the way to town vote. And after it passes, we'll continue to listen and meet with people a little bit more so that we know that we get it all right. Feedback is important, and I will just say that some of the greatest kind of questions or ideas that I've ever heard were from someone from an audience from the community who said, why don't you just do it this way? And I'm just, sure. And they've been right.
March 5th through 7th, Lee and I will be at the Killam School doing space programming, which means we're just going to meet with basically every single staff member or faculty person there to help us to develop the space program, which is a list of every room that will be in the new school, or the renovation edition. We'll be finalizing the just existing conditions assessments, and we will start developing initial site and massing strategies, which is the first part of the design. So far, we've not really actually done any design work. We're just still in the information gathering phase.
So on the space programming side of it, one of the things we've talked about as a committee in the past is that this school might likely be built to be significantly bigger from a size perspective in terms of number of students.
Yes.
So if you only are talking to the current staff, they might be thinking about the current size, and I would assume Dr. Milczewski and Dr. Pinto and Lindsay are bringing in the bigger picture of other types of facilities and rooms and how many students and all that kind of fun stuff.
The MSBA has a fantastic tool that they developed, which is a program template where you plug in the number of students, and it gives you an initial space program for a school of that size that the MSBA will fund, all the spaces the MSBA will fund. So we start with that template, and then we review it with the teachers and make sure that, we're probably not going to change like the classroom sizes or the number of classrooms, but we want to know, there's, in the nurse's office, you could do like 3 separate rooms, or you could do like 1 room with several cots in it and the nurse there. And those kinds of decisions have more to do with how the school staff want to work, and things like that. So that's the kind of level of detail that we're going to be discussing. Is that?
Yeah, and I was just going to add that one of the big things here is in your district will be the pre-K program. And there'll be a lot of discussion around that, as it's not necessarily in that initial MSBA program, but we have to develop it and we have to understand it and we want it to work, and it's its own thing right now. And its integration is really important. It's important for the whole town. So that will be part of our discussions with everyone.
special education-related spaces as well. While we've moved all of our programs out of there for now, doesn't mean that will be the case in the future.
Correct. We've been discussing that too.
We pushed that because special education rooms most of them didn't exist 20 years ago or 40 years ago or whatever, and people are forever in closets and in corridors, and now you have a really good sense of what they are, and it's a time when you can reevaluate the balance of your special education within your elementary schools and see if they're in the right places for the right reasons, and which you're doing, and to support and even most importantly, to make them inclusive to grades and to the other kids. Because there are special education programs that are separated a bit on purpose, but for the most part, it's push-in and integration, and that's what everybody wants to see, and it's actually possible. So we will help you do that.
Next slide.
That's your pre-K program right there. Is that right? That's RISE?
Yeah.
That's RISE right there.
That's them
Those-
arriving in the morning.
They sit on a little bench, and they don't need a lot of bench. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody on the board while they're here?
Exciting.
Committee?
Underway.
No?
Thank you.
No more? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll figure out with Carla and Dr. Milczewski what next time is a good logical time for you to come back and give us an update. It might be right around that PSR timeframe or something like that.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Is this your drive?
I'd see you tomorrow.
Is this yours?
Yeah.
No?
I
Okay.
think that's-
It's Chris's?
Chris's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so, Carla, come on back. All right, we're going to move on. Our next item on the agenda is the 2024-2025 school calendar, initial review, and Dr. Milczewski, you want to start us off?
Great. Hard to believe we're already well into thinking about next year. Just hit day 102. The only reason I know is because I was just at a lot of schools for the 100th day, which is one of my favorite days. Saw a lot of young 100-year-olds walking around the building, which is always very exciting when they dress up as 100-year-olds. With that said, so in your packet, you'll see a draft of the 2024-2025 calendar. We're presenting it tonight then for your review and feedback, and then obviously we'll present back a finalized draft for your vote on February 29th. The union also does have a draft of this, has been looking forward, providing feedback with us. So this incorporates some of the union feedback, but that window will be ongoing for them to provide more. There's some some of the updates or changes have been discussed, are outlined in the packet. One thing I just would like to address, some of the feedback I've heard most consistently over the past couple of years around calendar is the decision of whether or not to include religious holidays as days off from school. You'll see that we have kept our sort of practice, which we've had the past couple of years, which is we do not have any religious days off. The rationale being, I know that we can disagree on this too, is that we feel we have a lot of students who celebrate a variety of religious holidays and traditions, and it will be difficult to capture all of those days in the calendar. So we have continued on with sort of what we have set out before. But I just want to acknowledge that because we have heard a lot of feedback on that over the years. With that said, I think it's really important that just we do continue to closely follow and adhere to our policy around religious holidays. We have tried to tighten up the work on our end by reminders coming at the beginning of the year, reminders before the day from central office, additional reminders from principals, principals updating staff individually around this. I think we've put more mechanisms in place to try to follow this policy with more fidelity across the district. I think we were encouraged with what we saw generally the past year, but I did just want to be able to share that with the committee as we open up to any discussions, questions, or feedback on the calendar.
Anybody?
Feedback. I love the layout. I mean, we have a simple calendar. I love that there's clear call-outs for early release days and religious holidays, et cetera, and that's kind of on the backside, so super easy to reference. I really appreciate it, and the linking out to the policy for major religious holidays as well, I think is super helpful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Dr. Milczewski, just one question on the On the decision to collapse the RISE back-to-school nights into their home schools, the reasons for it make a ton of sense. Was there any discussion with the principals at Wood End or Killam around, anything they might do differently to sort of accommodate, I think we were in
Yes.
where we had 3 kids in the same back-to-school night, and it was, we opted not to visit my kindergartner's classroom, I think, because we'd had that teacher twice already before. So, so that worked out for us. But it's difficult it's obviously difficult, and I know we're not alone in having multiple kids in the same building at the same time. So, any thought given to how to accommodate that, given we're adding an additional, year of coverage?
Great question. So I'm going to defer, if Dr. Hardy's still on, which I believe she was, she had been working on this change more closely with the principals than I had to, so Sarah, if you have any thoughts on that.
Happy to speak to that. Thank you, Sean. One of the things with organizing these different back-to-school nights is there's almost no way to configure them where everything works out perfectly. We did consult with Carrie Wilcox, our preschool director, and the principal at Wood End and at Killam, where the 2 preschool programs are. And in talking with Principal Schwartz and Principal Fulton, they believe that the way that they have been organizing their back-to-school nights provides families with enough time to be able to visit a variety of classrooms over the course of that night. Principal Schwartz even mentioned that, they sometimes at Wood End have obviously preschoolers that might attend at Wood End, but they might have K-5 students at a different elementary school. And she was confident that the structure of her evening would actually allow parents to go between the buildings if they wanted. And so while we realize that there's always going to be a family who has a situation where the arrangement isn't ideal, we felt that this one would address the primary concerns that were raised in the past year by our pre-K families. But as always, we will monitor and continue to talk to families, and we're always open to solutions that they might bring forth.
Thank you. Yeah, I still think it's the right call. I think the trade-off is probably worth it. It just, again, lived experience. It was a little difficult. So, but thank you. Appreciate that.
Building on that, we have no guarantee, or do we, when we place in RISE that we don't, because they're not at all the elementaries. It's possible that a family may have a child in pre-K at Wood End and have to go to Barrows or Birch for that same back-to-school night.
Yep.
They have to divide and conquer amongst the parents or something else.
Problem.
It's not a new problem, especially because you can do the middle school. Well, it is and it isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could have, 2 elementary schoolers, one at the home school, one, somewhere for a special education
that's
program.
true.
So, to Dr. Hardy's point, these,
no perfect answer.
there are always going to be situations that create these kind of challenges.
If you have more than 2 children, you're already at odds of not being able to be all in the
Well, we don't have the same back-to-school nights for elementary and middle school, for example. Those are different nights.
Yeah,
right?
but
That's my
I had
point.
3 at the high school. You just figure it out.
Oh, I know.
You just pick your favorite.
Pick a favorite child.
Whoever washed the dishes that night.
I'll say it again, I'll say it every year, and I think hopefully next year we can get away from it, but I'm tired of no school in November. I do appreciate that we finally have a full week of school in November.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good sign. If we can continue at least having 1 full week of school in November, that's good. I'm also, you never know what's going to happen with snow, but the last day of school currently planned to be on a Monday in June is going to be the lightest attended day ever. If we actually have no snow that year. So I don't know if there's a way we can cut back a day in some way, shape, or form. I never really understood why we have vacation the Friday before Labor Day, the 3rd day of school. I don't know what's so great about that day necessarily, that everybody feels like they can only come to school for 2 days and they have to go on a long vacation, but that's me. And I may just made a bunch of enemies around the community.
A lot of schools have school that day, so I don't.
So I'd love to see if we carve that day back and then we're out on Friday in June. It would be a change.
I'm going to see Pearl Jam in Chicago that day, so I disagree with Tom.
So, it is also predicated on there being no snow days too, right?
Yeah.
To change the model on that for.
Well, so far this year, We've made it, and last year
Don't say those things. Don't say those things. But yeah,
Last year we
okay,
made
we
it,
can,
so.
we can discuss that with the union too, and see if that's, float that idea out there. But I can sense a difference of opinion even amongst the
Oh,
committee
there, I
members.
mean, it's not, you're not going to come to a coalescence there, but I don't, if anybody really says they want the last day of school to be on Monday, I think they're crazy. But that's another story to another day. I do appreciate, though, and I think there was some email traffic for some of us to discuss this, that we did not make a day of school on December 23rd in this plan. Because that would have been a Monday, and everybody would have been on vacation that week, and we would have had a low attendance that week, too. So as we think about these things, there's no perfect answer. You're always giving and taking. I understand that, but I appreciate that we did not do that.
So we'll go back to your No School November comment too, and Sarah and I have actually talked about this. We've talked about is that this year with the national election, it's going to be really difficult to have any flexibility with that November 5th day. Next year, the year after, we feel like there may be a little bit of flexibility there too, that may open up some additional school days in November. There's no other reason that can't be pushed up.
Yeah.
Good, Sarah.
Just to piggyback on what Dr. Milichewski saying, I think that, just timing wise, when we're thinking about that first in-service day with our staff, we feel like it would be more beneficial if it was happening in October, and November feels a little late for that day. Obviously, with the national election, that's not an option in this calendar, but I think it's something we'd want to explore in future years.
One other thing I should have flagged too is that we may have to come back in the spring on the results of the pilot, a scheduling pilot at the high school and what that may mean for shifts. So just wanted to flag that for the committee up front too.
Get ready with another color.
Be ready with another color.
So middle school is one color and high school is
We'll see. We'll see with the high school. We'll see where we are.
Yes, please.
It's related and not really directly to the calendar, so I think in terms of not including other major religious, or not having religious holiday observances on the school calendar, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I don't think we've reviewed policy IMDA in a great number of years, and when I was looking at it, I think there's a few tweaks we could make to make the policy better, more clear. For example, it says no tests on the day of, but it's also important not to have tests the day after, because then you still have the same problem of kids studying for a test on a major religious holiday.
Great point.
So I think if we could review that at some point, that would help emphasize the importance of those holidays to families, and the ability for their children to stay home and observe that.
Yep. We have a long list of
I
policies,
know.
so I need to get ourselves in gear.
Yep.
So, I mean, the MASC set is just ridiculous. It's part of the reason why it's
I will say I
delayed.
had a child spend Rosh Hashanah in
Yeah.
her bedroom studying for a test, so.
Great
Yep.
point.
Okay. Anything else on this topic from anybody? Dr. Quorum?
Jeffrey Quorum, Ridge Road. While we're on religious holidays, I was just curious why, I see that there are some double asterisks for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, but not for Orthodox Christmas or Eid al-Fitr that are on weekdays. And I just wondered if there was a particular reason why certain ones were starred and certain ones were not, or that was just an oversight. Right, I mean, or for Orthodox Christmas, for those who are Orthodox Christians, right, that would celebrate Christmas on January 7th, are there no religious accommodations for those students?
That is a great question. I don't have the answer. If anyone on our team has the answer, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I can get back to you on that one too. But great question. Sarah, do you have any thoughts?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
I'll restate it because he's at the other mic. He's asking questions about, on the second page of the calendar at the top right, we have a few of the holidays with a double asterisk asking about pointing to the religious accommodation policy in particular, but we don't have that there for Orthodox Christmas or Eid al-Fitr, I can't pronounce it properly. And he's wondering why some of them are starred and others are not.
I believe, screen I'm looking at is very small, but I believe the double asterisk was to designate the holidays that are called out in the school committee policy. There's 4 holidays that are labeled in the school committee policy as the days where we give accommodations for every single student in the district, regardless of observance of the holiday. And those are the days that we, we insist that, no tests are given, no new material, no events are held. And so I believe the 4 days with the double asterisks are those days in the policy.
Yeah, the policy they're defined as the
major non-national holidays. And so the accommodations aren't accommodations, it's just our policy to, to follow those procedures on those days. And then there's, the next section is individual accommodations, essentially, for students who might be observing, in these holidays or others. The accommodations would apply for an individual student in that case.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, we will move on. Okay. So now we'll move on to the FY24 second quarter report, and Dr. Pinto, start us off.
Yes, good evening. So I'm pleased to present in your packet, you'll find the financial overview of the school department's FY24 second quarter financial report. So I'm bringing it to you a little bit earlier than it was brought to you last year. This spans the period from July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. I think the lone item I'd like to flag for you is just the projected end-year balance at this stage. So it's $565,000, but we have planned to use those funds in the remaining months of the school year for a number of things: new curriculum purchases, tutoring and academic support for students, a refresh of existing technology. There are several hundred laptops that are due for replacement, and an augmentation of the Special Education Reserve Fund.
So on the refresh, have we been able to build a schedule yet for that we can start to plan from a budgeting perspective going forward?
Yes, so the schedule is underway at the moment. So there are roughly 4,300 laptops in the district, laptops and desktops, and so those were the ones that have been tagged with their specific ages and time for review. So we're operating on a 5-year refresh cycle. So right now we're planning for next year and then subsequent replacements.
So have we decided to purchase as opposed to lease going forward? Is that a decision that's been made, or is that still being considered?
So it hasn't been finalized, but it is looking like a purchase at this stage.
So on average, we'd be doing almost 900 laptops a year, more than that.
So
yeah, almost 900 laptops a year to do the 5-year refresh schedule.
So perhaps it depends. So right now it depends on how much is going to be allotted for laptop replacement. At this time, there are different laptops being considered at different price points. So one set for the students, one set for for teachers who may need a little more functionality in their system. And so that's factoring into the decision. It just seemed that the lease costs at this stage are, with an early analysis, that ramped up to a rather high yearly rate to sustain year over year. So that's not to say that we wouldn't consider it going forward.
Yeah. I don't know about anyone else in the committee, but I still think we need to think about those as capital expenses as opposed to operating expenses, especially if we're going to have a 5-year life cycle for them overall. But maybe I'm wrong, and we do have a FinCom member here as well that might have a view. Sean, you were on the FinCom, you might have a view on that as well. But
So was I.
And yeah, you were there for a while.
The cost criteria.
The individual one as opposed to a collective? So
That's at least what it used to, and
Is that-
5 years is
not enough?
Borderline,
Yeah, I mean, you could capitalize it. I think there are a lot more process steps to get things onto and funded via the capital plan, especially things that, are sort of a recurring, predictable expense like this. So, I don't feel strongly one way or the other, but it's certainly conceivable.
Isn't there a number in the capital plan every year now?
There is.
Technology replacement?
So yeah, it's mostly for network-related stuff, though.
That's correct. And so we'd be looking to supplement that for
150,000, I think.
125.
Yes, it'll build up to 150,000.
Okay. Any other questions? I dominated, sorry about that. Nope. Okay, that's
Thank
our,
you.
any other updates, Dr. Milczewski, Dr. Pinto, on that? Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's our last agenda item then, so I'll make my own motion to adjourn.
Second.
Chuck got it. All in favor? All opposed? And we are here adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.